first episode we did with Kevin, of course, we saw him in the training facility there in Ottawa, and he was taking his first tentative steps at spreading mud mortar. And of course he'd done all the other things that you do as an apprentice when you start. You learn first of all to mix the mortar, to carry things around for the masons that you're working with. And then he'd done cutting out in preparation for repointing. The phrase cutting out and repoint means when you're taking old mortar out of stone joints or brick joints for that matter, and replacing the old mortar with a better mortar, or mortar that has better properties than the old stuff had. Most of the work that we do on the West Block and on all the other buildings we deal with tends to be involved in repairing things that have been done badly in the past and in the recent past, as well as repairing things that have eroded over time. So you've got the mortar that would erode through the freeze-thaw cycles and the acid rain and the smoke and the diesel fumes and all that stuff over 100 years. But you've also got stuff where it's been identified in the 60s or early 70s that this stuff needs to be replaced. And instead of replacing it with a lime-rich mortar, they would replace it with mortar that was mixed with Portland cement, which is much harder than the stuff, original material that was put in. So cutting that stuff out involves some fairly heavy concentration levels and some specialised tools. Kevin had already done all that stuff, and when we saw him last, he was in the workshop at the Interior Masonry Training Centre facility in Ottawa doing his brick and block stuff, and of course spreading mortar. And in the 2.5 years since we saw Kevin in that workshop, his attitude has continued to be one of, I can do anything. If you'll show me how to do it once, I'll be able to do it from then on in. And it continues to amaze me. And Kevin's not the only one. I mean, at the high point of this job, where we had the biggest crew on, we had 60 apprentices just like Kevin, and all of them have proved their worth over the years. But Kevin has this ability, innate ability, it seems, to be able to lead also, and he's got his own little team now, and he's not tentatively spreading mud on bricks and blocks. He's taken apart and putting back together these huge colonnades up at the top of wall number 3. Which would be work that was done by highly skilled masons in the first instance, and that would be the first thing that Kevin probably saw when he came on site, was these masons that had come from all over the country to join us were taking these things in apart and scratching their heads about how to put them back together again, as we all were. It was a thing none of us had ever done it, and here now 2.5 years later, Kevin's got his own little team doing it and leading while he's doing it. It's an amazing thing to see.
We were talking last week, and it's been 3 years since we caught you walking off to work on pretty much your first day, I guess, your first regular day.
Yeah, essentially that was the first day. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were excited, and you were, I wouldn't say nervous, but you were, because you felt confident, of course.
Yeah.
But I think you were looking forward to a lot of stuff. How's it panned out for you? Is it working well?
It's working great. I couldn't be happier. I really didn't know what to expect walking to a big job like that. I'd never seen anything like that, or let alone work on it. So, and I was pretty new to the trade, so a little nerve-wracking, but everything's panned out really well, and I've learned a lot of really good skills.
Mm-hmm. And you felt you were accepted by the people there, I imagine?
Yeah, definitely. They kind of welcomed me with open arms. It was a pretty easy transition. Met a lot of really good people there from all across Canada, and also abroad, over from Europe and everything like that. So,
have you made a lot of friends up there?
I've made a ton of friends. It's a very good atmosphere up there. Great people.
Yeah.
You hang out with them 40 hours a week, and then even on weekends you like to hang out with them some more.
Very
so
good.
It's good.
Very cool. I can't get you to say anything bad about this job at all, can I?
No, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything negative about it.
Good. Now, beforehand, you were trained as in the police, I guess, and if I've got that right, and in security end of things, and you kind of thought that was going to be your career, and instead you found this a whole other aspect, and obviously it suits you. That's great.
Yeah. No. After graduating from Carleton, I just kind of took this job as a summer thing, and luckily I did, because it's kind of turned into a career, and one that I'm very happy with, and I definitely don't regret my decision.
Mm-hmm. Good. And last time when we first talked to you, you were about to be married.
Yeah.
And so I presume she came to her senses and ditched you. And,
Yeah, that's done and over with.
That must have been brutal.
No, it was amazing. It was a really, really fun experience. Yeah, marriage is great, and she really loves the career that I've chosen, and she's very proud to say that I work on Parliament Hill as a mason, not as a politician. So it's been very good.
Yeah, that's good. Now, Bobby contributed a couple of questions, and I was surprised at the questions because I thought they would be of a more technical level.
Yeah.
But I think he just assumes that you can answer all those questions, which is great. A vote of confidence. But one of the questions, and it adds on to here, and I don't mean to pry or pry into your personal life at all, but he was wondering if you had considered the fact that you would some point be able to bring your children up to this place, and maybe who knows, 20, 30 years from now, point to something and say, yeah, your dad built this, right?
Yeah.
Have you had that thought?
Oh, my wife and I have had that talk quite often because now that the tarps are finally coming down, we've had friends and family visit us in Ottawa, and we've been able to go there, and I've been able to point that I've done this and that, and it's really awesome. And so knowing that down the road when we do have kids, it's we're going to be able to point that out, and it's going to be very special. It's something I'm looking forward to for sure.
The other day up in the hill, I was so impressed by your confidence.
Thank you.
I mean, you knew exactly what was going on, and there was no screwing around at all.
No, definitely not.
You just definitely got right in there and did the job, and you weren't tentative at all. I'm not suggesting that you were necessarily before, but you could really tell as an observer, that you were really going into the job. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've grown quite a bit as a mason. I remember when we first started filming and I first started working, it was, I was so new that I didn't really know exactly what I was doing at the beginning, and I just went from doing very kind of general laboring duties and kind of simple tasks, and over the years I've done some pretty incredible builds, just like the opportunities that I've had to do them, and you just your confidence comes on a daily basis. You learn more and more every single day, and kind of translated into that last video you shot there, because everything was just going the way you wanted it, everything was working out, and I felt that I definitely have grown a lot as a mason, just from the opportunities that I've been given and from working with so many great masons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good. Do you have anything you'd like to say generally about your experience?
Yeah, it's been an unreal ride. I'm very honored and very privileged to work on the Parliament buildings, and it's something that I can kind of cherish forever. And it's just been phenomenal. I've met so many great people, and it's a very rewarding job, that's for sure.
Can you speak a bit about the confidence thing? Because what I noticed the most dealing with him this time as opposed to the first time is the tentativeness is gone.
Yeah, it's completely gone.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about apprenticeships. That we're all of us are involved in these social media sites that deal with stonemasonry and masonry restoration, stone carving, stuff like that. And there's always somebody on there whining away that you don't need an apprenticeship or a certificate to see how good you are. If you're good, you're good, you're good. And that's just rubbish to me. There are people who work away in these little closed-in spaces of their own, and they're trying to teach themselves this very, very difficult form of construction based on what they're reading or gleaning from watching how-to videos given by people who know nothing themselves. And the apprenticeship system, because you're working on a wall with a whole bunch of different masons, you'll have your master mason, and hopefully these guys would look to their foreman or me as their master mason, and then the other people around them are also providing them with information that they can then pick and choose from. They might like the way one guy does something and not the other guy, and because of that sort of collective knowledge all getting to them at the same time as they go through the apprenticeship, suddenly these guys turn out to be superstars themselves. And I don't think you get that if you're working on your own or you're working on a two-man crew where you're just making the same mistake again. I've had guys tell me they've been masons for 40 years and didn't need a certificate. And I'll turn around and look at their work and I'll say, well, you've been a bad mason for 40 years. And you do need a certificate. And if you'd started with a proper apprenticeship, then you would be a proper mason, at this stage of the game. And they'd be able to look back with great pride on the stuff that they'd done over the past years and not have to sort of cringe every time they look at something they would rather have done again or made better the first time.
You've told me some stories about your apprenticeship in Scotland.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're very interesting stories, and they all have a moral. And I'm wondering how your apprenticeship compares to something that Kevin might go through. Do you think he would draw the same conclusions from his apprenticeship, or was yours actually more intense, or do you just tell better stories about it?
I don't know whether I just tell better stories about it or not, but one of the goals I had initially when I started teaching at Durham College in Ontario, one of the goals I had initially was to try and give people the same sort of information that I had been given. And so I always started the very first class with who my masonry father and grandfather were. And I did the same with all the apprentices in the chalk talks that we've shown and talked about since. The very first ones, I told them who I was and where I'd come from and what I had been taught over the course of my apprenticeship and had continued to learn over the course of the years, the intervening years. And I think that I've tried to bring my style of learning that I was taught in Barmulloch College in Glasgow, and I still remember my teachers. I still remember the things that they would say, how they would couch things to make it an easier learning thing. It becomes I love this word inculcation, which is more than teaching. It's almost like the fable about if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. Inculcation is a bigger word than teaching. It's not just the ability to show somebody something, it's the ability to make them want to learn more, to show them something that instills in them so much of a yearning for more knowledge about that stuff that they'll go themselves and then start searching for it. So this inculcation of knowledge, I think, is much more important than just teaching. And I've always tried to do that with the people that I deal with on a daily basis.